Hi guys, it's me again, Johnny Pialu. Here with episode 6, review of Interview with the Vampire. This episode is called Like Angels Put in Hell by God. So with this episode, keep in mind with episode 5, we left off with the big fight where Lestat dropped Louis from the sky and Louis comes tumbling back down and he's pretty much mangled. Like Lestat mangled that man and he is pretty much like broken into pieces. When we open with this episode, Louis is healing from his fall and we hear him talking about all of the injuries that he has because of his fall. He's blind in one eye for over a month. I believe they say he has broken ribs, broken vertebrae, his lungs have been impacted, and Claudia is there to help take care of him and to pretty much heal him back to health. During this time with him talking to Daniel, we find out. I mean, we see it when Lestat goes up to this when he flies like ascends to the sky, but we find out that that's called the Cloud Gift, and Lestat has it, and Louis didn't know, Claudia didn't know, and Daniel asked Louis, "Well, why do you think Lestat would keep something like that from you?" Because at this time, I believe Lestat and Louis have been together for almost 20 years. So you've been with this man almost 2 decades. And granted, that's not a long time in vampire years, but still, he's your maker. So these are pivotal things that Lestat is keeping from Louis and Claudia. And that kind of ties back to what Claudia said at the end of episode 5 before the fight. He wants to keep you in this box. I think he really wants Claudia and Louis like as his own little vampires. Like yes, they're his family, but like they're his own little vampires and he's in charge as big vampires. So he keeps them in the dark about certain things. And it's like Louis is in this limbo where I guess he's kind of regulated to being in the dark because he doesn't really know, I guess, what yet he really wants to do. Versus Claudia is much more like, no, I'm going to go after it and I'm going to figure out and find out what it is that I don't know. So Lestat leaves after this big fight. And during this time, Claudia is retraining Louis in a sense, trying to get him back strong again. And they do things like him trying to chase a goat around the house, and he can't keep up with chasing a little baby goat. That is how pretty much Louis has to start all over in a sense with rebuilding himself and his strength. And during this time, Claudia and Louis spend all of their time together. And it just, of course, deepens their bond. Um, Claudia and Louis' relationship it's like part mother child, then part brother sister. Um, there are moments that it feels much like siblings, whereas like you can see the influence of Grace, even though she didn't know Grace, you see that she's his sister in that sense. But then the way that Claudia cleaves and the way that Louis kind of cleaves to Claudia for safety and reassurance and for emotional well-being, it does give a mother-child bond. The way that a mother would kind of, cleave to her baby in the way a baby would cleave to its mom. Um, And during this time while they're together and just in the house, Lestat is constantly, mind you, the house is clean now because Claudia is back. Lestat is constantly trying to, I guess, get back in their good graces. He will ring the door. Well, he will call and call and call, and he will send gifts. And so there's this one scene where he shows up at the house and he's like, I've been calling. The operator has been putting me through. Maybe the number's different now. Like he knows that they're avoiding him, but he's trying to play it off. And so, just like an abuser, he gonna come with gifts. He comes bearing gifts. This very rare book, and he knows Louis loves reading. So yeah, I'm gonna get you something that I know you love and you enjoy to show you how sorry I am. So Louis and Claudia are not receptive of it. And Claudia tells him this, and he's like, "Well, I'll wait for Louis to tell me." And Louis, you can hear him upstairs, like literally hopping across the floor where he throws Lestat's coffin out. So Lestat, that was pretty much saying, "You don't have no home here, because even if you come back here, we ain't got nowhere for you to sleep at. So bye, get out." These what he said, mea culpas, went on for almost 6 years. So during this time after the fight, we learned that Lestat and Louis are apart for 6 years. Lestat also confronts Claudia and Louis while they're out walking on the town, and they're talking to each other, having their dialogue back and forth, and they run into Lestat, and he pulls up with a new car, saying that he got one for Louis, and this one will match his back home. He says he's in Algiers, and Louis is not talking to him. Claudia is doing all the talking and letting him know that no, you're not gonna get off easy. And he's like, that night, all that long time ago. And Claudia was like, no, that night 3 years ago. At this point, he's been gone for 3 years. Like, Claudia is making sure that you don't just speak around it. You say what it is. No, not just that bad night. That bad night 3 years ago that you pretty much almost beat Louis to death, dropped him from the sky, and you vanished without a trace. Well, disappeared because you knew what you did was just so awful, and you can't deal with the reality of, like, you literally broke this man. You broke him because you can't control him, and he's not doing what you want him to do as far as giving all of himself to you emotionally, and even with Claudia being there. Lestat wants Louis all to himself, and that includes sharing him with Claudia. And Claudia wants Louis all to herself in a bit too. But they want Louis for different reasons. I think, Lestat wants Louis when it comes to romance and just having a companion and having a partner. He wants someone to have a life with. Whereas Claudia, I think she's looking for a maternal and paternal bond. She's looking for a familial bond. Like, you are my family. You are the only thing that I know. They really are the only thing that each other knows. Not Lestat, but yes, Louis and Claudia. They are the only thing that each other knows on this side of existence. So Louis, even when he bought the car, Louis was disengaged. Claudia had drug her nails across the car, and it was giving real, like, we still don't give a fuck. It was giving that. So fast forward, Lestat is still sending gifts, and we are at the 6 year mark. He sends a record of a song that he wrote called "Come to Me," and this one is what gets Louis to respond to Lestat. And it's not because the song is just so beautiful, but because Lestat is such a fuckboy. Lestat has Antoinette, his side piece, the one that he is cheating on Louis with, singing the song that he wrote for Louis to come back to him. Like, and you, like, he knew that was gonna piss Louis off. I think at that point he was just like, you know what, I'm gonna make you mad to where you gonna have to respond to me. So Louis somehow finds out where Antoinette stays at, goes over there, bust through the door and confronts Lestat. Tell him 6 years of begging, and you think that you pretty much done got to me. Yes, sir, he has gotten to you. You in this woman's house. You done broke in there. Her and Lestat were butt naked in the bed. So either they had just got through, or they was in the midst of it, or about to. And he pretty much tells her to leave her own house, put on her clothes, and get the hell out. And Louis is dripping wet, like he is soaked. And Lestat says that, and Louis says, "I swim better than I drive." So we find out that Louis was so enraged and wanted to get to him as quick as possible that he swam the Mississippi to get to this woman's house. Now that makes me wonder, how fast do the vampires swim? Is it like turbo swimming? Like propeller, like, like how did he get over there that quick? So he gets over there. Lestat, he tells Antoinette to get out. And Antoinette's like, this is my house. Lestat, check him. And Lestat he don't even look at Antoinette and he tells her to leave. He is laser focused on Louis. You know, this man came back pretty much and they got back together, and you see them pretty much have this angry makeup sex where Louis is beating Lestat. And we know he's beating Lestat because we transition to the scene where Lestat is back home with Claudia and Louis, but he's sitting across from them, and they're sitting. Louis and Claudia are sitting like right here, the table, and Lestat is sitting across from them, and they're pretty much telling him there's going to be new rules. If you're going to be coming back, if you're going to be a part of our family, there are new rules. So that's when Claudia says, I'm not your daughter anymore. You're not my uncle. You're not my daddy. At most, I'll be your sister. And I think she said sister to for herself and for him to be equal. You know, you consider yourself to be equal to your siblings. You don't necessarily see them as having authority over you. Now they probably will if if they are older. You know, your big sister or your big brother, and you will take their lead on some things. But the way when she said my daddy or my uncle, these are people that you grow, like you always have that type of hierarchy within a relationship, versus with siblings, not necessarily. There it's not like a hierarchy that's like built into the relationship. So Lestat is like, well, I'm your maker, you can't just change the family makeup. And then she was like, also you need to kill Antoinette. And mind you, Louis is just sitting right there quiet. I've noticed that he is almost like the way he takes a back seat and just lets things happen. It's like, Louis, it's like I kind of feel like he thinks that if he doesn't do anything, he's not guilty. Or not even so much that, maybe he just doesn't know what to do. I don't know. But Lestat and Claudia pretty much was like, if you want to come back, there's rules and regulations. And he kind of feel like, I'm the one who even brought you on this side. Who told you that I had to listen to you? And she's like, well, you was gone. There's a new sheriff in town, and things will go differently. And they ask him, yeah, they want him to kill Antoinette. And Lestat is like a child asking her parents or trying to demand her parents or tell them what to do. And that's when Louis says, well, Claudia is 33 now. And he says that's a lick in vampire years. So that's nothing. She is still an infant to me. And you just sitting up here letting her run game and just let her take charge. So they also make rules about no secrets. And Lestat like gets like, oh, he does that. And it's so interesting that he keeps having that attitude about secrets and not keeping secrets when they want him to tell him when they want him to be honest about everything. But he was the one who said no secrets when Claudia was turned. And so to me, once again, it just kind of gives like that's another way or another tactic that you would use to try to keep control. You want them to tell you, and you want to be in the know of everything that they do, but they can't be in the know of what you have going on. So it's like a control tactic. And Louis asked Lestat, did he have something to do with Paul's death? And you can tell that that's something that has really been bothering Louis. And maybe that also kind of ties back into why he can't fully express himself with Louis. Maybe he just never felt safe because you have to keep in mind, Lestat came around. He did have a little tension with Paul. He kills himself on Grace's wedding day. All of these things are happening very close. And then they also happen during the time that Lestat came into Louis's life. So yeah, it could most definitely, and the fact that he knows that Lestat is a vampire and the control that he has and he can make people do things, yes, it will have him thinking, were you a part of it? Because he also was a part of getting rid of Lily. Lestat, it's like he wanted to eliminate anyone that was close to Louis in order to make sure that he had full access to him. So it doesn't, it's not, it's within reach why Louis might have that fear or might even just, think that something might be going, that might have happened. They asked him how he was made, and he said his maker's name. I think he said his maker's name was Magnus, or his maker's name is Magnus. I believe he said his name. He had to have said his name because I know his name, but also I do know the name from, I've watched season 2 already. But he says that his maker had him in a dungeon, and there was so many other bodies that looked just like him, that people that didn't survive or whatever. And his maker made him, kept him in that dungeon, gave him a load of money, and went into the fire. That is all. And he said his maker did not teach him anything about being a vampire, and he had to learn everything on his own. And he said early on, he did not, he could not drink blood. He could not get with the whole becoming a vampire and actually killing people and drinking their blood. It was hard for him. He said he cried out to God for help. And that's so interesting because him and Louis pretty much had the same introduction to, well, the same emotional introduction to vampirism. And Louis said, when Claudia had left in episode 5, that all vampires are born out of trauma. And that makes so much sense. And then when you know everyone's story, Louis, Lestat, Claudia, they all had this traumatic entry into vampirism. And when you think about it, it is a traumatic being and a traumatic existence in a way, and especially how we will understand it from the lenses of humanity, that you would only get there through a traumatic experience. No one would like opt into that. Maybe, maybe not. And you can tell that while he's telling this story, Louis is seeing him and becoming endeared. He's seeing the softness in him. And Louis is looking at him like, oh, like, I'm listening. And Claudia is looking at him like, I'm not buying this bullshit. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn what you had going on. You still an asshole. And that's why she, at the end, she said, kill Antoinette. And she wanted him to know, no, I am only tolerating you being here for Louis. Know that. Because I don't want you here either. I'm only doing this for Louis. So, being that they are now in their new family dynamic again, they are in the park together. Also, that's why he said he doesn't like being a bandit, and he looked at Louis, because I think he still sees Louis as having abandoned him emotionally, because Louis has yet to tell him he loves him, and he has yet to freely give his love to him. And the way that Louis gives his love to Claudia, I think it shows he feels safe in his relationship with Claudia. Um, I feel as if once it came to being a vampire, Claudia essentially is the only person he actually chose. And what I mean by that, not saying that he doesn't choose Lestat, but Claudia, the relationship feeds him and it feeds his humanity. And I think it heals him on both sides. It heals him because Claudia is like a daughter to him. She is the daughter he never got to have. She is the understanding family member that he lost in Grace. She is just the light in the youthfulness of being young and being a child and being the only woman in the house. The only to bring that feminine, whatever her feminine energy is, or whatever her feminine qualities are. And her and Louis, like the fact, I think the beauty in her and Louis' relationship, especially when we see their montages together, that they can just be together and find peace in just simply sitting together and reading books. And I feel as if that type of love is deeper than a romantic love. It's like, I love you as a person. I love you as an entity. I love you as an existing human being. Just being in your presence gives me peace. And I think that's what Louis and Claudia are for each other. And I think I love their relationship. I do. They are in the park together as a family. Louis, Lestat, and Claudia. And of course, Louis is in the middle because Lestat and Claudia don't fool with each other like that. And they're talking about their food differences when hunting. And I thought Lestat really used this point to strong arm Louis into hunting human, because he brings up how Louis only hunts animals, and how him denying himself of blood of humans makes him feel as if he looks down on being a vampire. And he somehow gets Claudia to agree on it as well. And Claudia's like, you know what, I when she gave her input, she was like, I kind of feel the same way. And Lestat is just rubbing it in like, see, we can't have this amongst our family. And when we go hunting, we hunt human. We can't be feeling this type of way about it. He is so full of shit. And so Louis agrees and he goes and finds someone to hunt human. So we get to Louis and Claudia are at home. They're by the fireplace talking. And Lestat comes in and he has a newspaper and it has blood in it. And he gives it to them. And it's Antoinette's finger with the ring on it. And he gives it to them to imply that he's killed her. He's held up his end of the bargain by getting rid of her. Claudia throws the finger in the fire and keeps the ring. And she's pretty much like, okay, and you just did what you were supposed to. This wasn't nothing extra. And he's like, yeah, and we should fix the fireplace and all the damage that happened from the fight. And she said, no, we're going to leave it so we don't forget what happened. It's a reminder of what happened. Claudia, she gives it to Lestat, but I also agree with that. It's just kind of, Lestat kind of has a air of sweep everything under the rug. I'm happy again, you're happy again, and it didn't happen. No, that thing did happen. It happened. And they just don't deal with things. And it's like he doesn't want to deal with things. But Claudia is very intentional in dealing with things because, number one, it's going to piss Lestat off. And I just think, number two, she likes to operate in real feelings and in truth and just deal with things head on. Um, but throughout the time that we see this, we see Claudia and Lestat kind of venting about each other to Louis because he feels as if they're both not understanding enough of each other and what happened and what everyone went through before, coming together back as a family. Lestat feels as if Claudia is just dead set on being angry at him. And so she just doesn't want to give in. Claudia feels as if Lestat is on bullshit and he's just trying to, get Louis to fall back into his good graces, and then everything is back to what it is. And Louis kind of like riding the fence a little bit. He's telling Lestat that Claudia's just very protective of him, and she loves him very much, and she just wants what's best. But then he's also telling Claudia, Lestat's doing this, and he was like, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm enduring." She said, "I'm dealing with him. The fact that I'm in the house dealing with him is enough. And you should just accept that." And he was like, "No, do more." So we see throughout the episode, we see montages that Claudia and Lestat play chess. And over time, we see that, Lestat is constantly beating Claudia at chess, but she uses this as an opportunity to like fuck with Lestat, like get in his head. And she asks him questions about an old lover named Nikki, that Lestat obviously is very sensitive about, because you can see it in his body language, and you can also see in Louis's body language when Claudia brought him up that, like, oh my god, girl, why did you go here? Like, you really don't, like, you really gonna piss him off now. And during these times, you can see Louis, he's almost thinking like he wants to interject, like, Claudia, I think he just wants to be like, he really is like the mama caught in between her husband and her baby right now. and and she asked some questions about Nikki. Oh, did you kill Nikki like he tried to kill Louis? Did you write him a song too? Tell me, oh, you wrote this song for him. Oh, his song sounds a little bit better than the song he wrote for you, Louis. Like, she is just being messy, fucking with this man. And I ain't gonna lie, I'm here for it, because Claudia does not back down. And Lestat needs somebody to go toe to toe with him. He just does. So when she's doing all this, and Lestat thinks he's getting one over on Claudia because he's beating her, and she was like, "Oh, but my master only taught me how to play, only good enough to entertain him, not to really win." And so that pisses Lestat off too. She's still saying it telepathically to Louis, and he's like, "When you act like that, you're being ugly." And she said, "Better ugly than being blind." And Louis looks at her like, "What?" Claudia has found out that Antoinette really is not dead. Lestat lied, and Antoinette is alive, but it appears that Lestat has turned her, because when she's in the bed, they transition back to her house. She's talking to Lestat, and Lestat is just venting about Claudia and Louis. And she's going on about how she wants to still do her career, and how she loves him, and he has her. He doesn't need them. And then she says, he's like, "Well, I guess, where do you want to go? What do you want to be?" Or something like that. And she's like, "Well, now that I'm dead, I can be anybody." So is implied that he has turned her. And she starts complaining about, now she has lost a finger, it's going to be hard for her to get work. And Lestat was like, when I come over here, I don't want to hear complaints, that's why I come over here. And she, gets in line, and she apologizes and says, "I love you." And he says, "I love you too." And Louis overhears that. Claudia overhears that on her balcony, and she looks over at Louis, and they go walking back down the street, and Louis is just like defeated, and he's upset, but he's not going to confront Lestat. It's almost like he's just going to accept his lying, his cheating. And Claudia was like, "If that's the piece of trash he wants to love, let him." And Lestat and Louis said he don't love her, and the way he said it was like, he loved me, but also, like, I know that he's using her. But it was also like, whatever she doing with him, he's always my man. He comes back to me. And he just sounded so downtrodden and just so weakened emotionally and spiritually, that he would just take anything from this man, knowing that he's lied, knowing that this was a promise that they said that they was going to keep, if with their new family arrangement, for him to get rid of her, and they know for sure that he hasn't. And I think Claudia's upset that Louis just accepts Lestat's betrayal. It frustrates her. And yeah. So let me go back. My notes. And throughout this episode, As we see Louis and Lestat, like they're getting back together, they're back making love and things like that. Claudia is communicating with him telepathically and saying that, they need to leave. She wants to leave, and he's like, he can't bring himself to do it. So another time when they're out in the park, she's on the bench and she decides to get up and leave. And he's like, I will just hold you back. And she reluctantly leaves, but he gives her his blessing to leave. He wants her to go and explore. So she gets on a train, and being that during this time, and Claudia is a young black woman, she has to ride in the back, and then she's also a vampire, so that's the only place that she could be. Lo and behold, Lestat has found his way on that train, decapitates the conductor, and gets back there with Claudia and confronts her. He has blood all over his hands, and he has a dog in a cage back there. And as he's letting the dog lick the blood off his hands, and Claudia is just once again like crying. She's distraught, and he said, you would think your maker would deserve you telling me that you're gonna scurry off and leave again like you did before. And she said, Louis gave me his blessing. And Lestat said, Louis couldn't give you his blessing at this time. He is weak. He said he couldn't pick an apple off a tree. Pretty much, she said, Claudia, you will come back home and you will stay at home. And if you ever try to leave again, I will turn your bones into dust. And he said, can you imagine if you left again and you encountered another Bruce? So he implies now, he lets her know he knows what happened. He knows what happened about her assault. And he says what he did to you was in poor taste. And if you're gone, they can't protect you. And what if something like that happens to you again? Louis would never forgive himself. Like, he's really rubbing it in. But Lestat doesn't want Claudia to leave, because if he knows that when Claudia is gone, Louis is going to be distraught. Louis is going to be sad. Louis is going to be, it's like an empty nest. Louis, he needs Claudia, and he absolutely loves her. And I think Claudia gives him purpose, but he's going to have to figure that out and not just rely so heavily on Claudia. But yeah, Claudia, Lestat pretty much tells her, no, you're going to bring your ass back home, because my man just got back in good graces with me, because the last time you was gone, he acted like I wasn't in the house with him at all, ignored me for 7 years. Then you came back, they had that big fight, he was gone for another 6. So another thing to point out is during this time, even though Lestat and Louis have been together, they haven't really been together for like over 10 years. 6 years they were physically apart, but those 7 years that they were together, they were not together. They were just simply like roommates. Louis had completely withdrawn himself. So this is the first time in about 13 years that they are back in the same home, and they are back in the dynamic of a romantic couple. They are back in the dynamic of sleeping in the same coffin. They are back in the dynamic of doing things together, acting like a family, being intimate with one another. They hadn't done that in well over a decade, including the time that they were still together. But Louis was like, no, my baby is gone. I can't think about you. I can't focus on you. I refuse to. And especially when I feel like you're the reason she left. Yeah, I'm no, until my baby come back, I don't want to bye. And he pretty much tells her they have to endure each other for Louis' happiness. She love and that really goes to show how much they both want Louis all to themselves, and they can't stand each other, that they are willing to endure each other just to be close to Louis. Lestat wants Louis in every way, and he feels as if Claudia is in the way, because Lestat can never be what Claudia is to Louis. He can never be that. And he knows that. And that makes him insecure. And I think that if there's anybody that he is threatened, like, can get my man from me, it's Claudia. And it's in a completely different relationship. And we can't act like that a lot of times in the way that family structures are set up, that a lot of times fathers sometimes do become jealous of the relationship that the mother has with the child, and because the mother gives all of her affection and attention and nurturing to this child. And not saying that Louis is Claudia's mother, but they do kind of, their relationship does kind of fit that dynamic a little bit. And and Claudia feels like, well, kind of like, well, mommy, you always take daddy's side, but daddy feels like you always take the baby side. And Louis feel like, well, damn, I'm trying to do something for both of y'all. So look, we do a flashback to present day where he's talking to Daniel, and somehow during this part, Daniel admits, or I think Louis says, back in 1973 when he was telling this story, Daniel said it. He said he had asked Lestat, he asked Louis to make him a vampire, like give it to him now, and he was like, "You weren't worthy of it then, but you are worthy of it now." And we see Rashid in the back, kind of like look over to Daniel a little bit, and kind of like, Back to the chess matches. They have these chess matches, throughout the show. The last one, I think one of the last ones, Claudia beats Lestat. Like, she gets in his head, because in his mind she's letting all of her big players on the chessboard go, and she's just using up pawns and stuff. Not He's not catching the angle that she's coming at, and because of that, he's being arrogant. And he is so for certain that he's going to beat her, that she's able to come in and beat him unbeknownst. And that really foreshadows the remainder of, especially the next episode. That really does foreshadow how Lestat thinks he has one up on Claudia, and Claudia's like, I let you think that. And she's telepathically communicating with Louis, and she says that she believes Lestat killed his maker, Magnus. And he killed him because Magnus trapped him. Like, she feels as if Lestat is trapping her and Louis. He wouldn't teach him anything. He wouldn't let him be free of him. So he killed him to get away. And she says, I want to kill him. I want to kill Lestat. And she said, Louis, the thing that you don't want to admit to yourself? And Louis says, telepathically. And she says, is that you want to kill him too. And you're going to, and if you ever had the opportunity, you would enjoy doing it. And that's the only way that they can be free of Lestat. And in the background, the radio is playing, and you hear it talking about Germany invading Poland. So this is the time of World War I, and around the Holocaust and Hitler and his coming to power. And they agreed to plan to kill Lestat together. Now, back in present day, Daniel, throughout the time that he is interviewing Louis, he gets like these IVs for his illnesses. I believe he has Parkinson's. So the drugs kind of make him sleepy. So Daniel ends up falling asleep, and his mind goes back to when he first met Louis in 1973 at a bar. Daniel, the actor who's playing young Daniel, looks just like Daniel. Like, he looks like he could be Daniel's son in real life. It's crazy. So Louis, we see Louis, he kind of has like a little top cut. He has like a little blazer on, and it's in the 70s. You can tell he's much more, he's of that time. And he has a confidence and a swag about him that makes him approachable. And they're chatting it up, and Daniel lets him know that he's a journalist. And he was like, oh, the journalist that interviews politicians. She was like, no, anybody can do that. He was like, I interview the people in the community. Like, I want to interview you know, the people that nobody thinks about. That's how you really know a community and know a city. Louis is very forward and he's very charming. And in his own way, I think he picks up that Daniel also does drugs. And he lets Daniel know, I got something for you if you need it. And in his own code. And it's also a little bit of a little homoeroticism. Like you could tell that they're a little bit interested in each other. It could be like, hey, maybe he may be interested to hang out with, or if we start hanging out, he's kind of cute. Like it's giving one of those like, I mean, we could hang out. I'm not gonna try anything, but he's kind of cute, and if he wants to try anything, we could do something. But I'm gonna just play it safe. So Louis tells him he's a vampire. Like they're talking, and he's like, "I'm a journalist," and Louis like, "I'm a vampire," and the way that he says it, it's kind of like how people tell the truth in such a light way. They tell a big truth in such a light way that it doesn't feel like it's the truth. Kind of like when people joke, like they'll joke and tell the truth and make light of it, that you feel like, oh, they're just joking and lying, but it's really the truth. That's how it was. He was like, I'm a vampire. And they laugh. And even as he says that, Daniel is still intrigued. He still wants, and he tells Louis, I want to interview you. And Louis pretty much invites him back to his place, and he's talking to another guy, and he asks him would he like to join them back home. So that implies that Louis came with this guy, and he knows this guy on a personal level, that they share a home together. When young Daniel sees this man, lo and behold, I'm sorry guys, lo and behold, it turns out that the guy in question is Rashid. The same Rashid that is currently in real time in 2022 when they're having this interview with Louis and Daniel. And so when he remembers that in his dream, he wakes up and he's like, oh, and that's the end of the episode. So now that we know that Rashid was there in 1973, looking the exact same, and now he's in 2022 with Louis, it's fair for us to assume that he might be a vampire, but also, what is his relationship to Louis? And he obviously knows Daniel, but he's acting as if he doesn't. And Daniel now knows that he knows him, but he obviously can't remember where and why he knows him. Bro, it's getting thicker. The plot is getting thicker. So much stuff is being revealed. I love this show. If you enjoy this review, like it. If you have any if you have seen it yourself and was seen the episode and you agree, or you have some other points that I didn't pick up on, put that in the comments below and we can discuss that. And I'll be back next time with episode 7's review, which is the season finale. So I'll be back, and thank you for watching.